Yeah, today we talk about a case study that we prepared for you. The Megvii case, it's called, and it's Megvii is actually one of China's AI dragons. We'll be talking about this company to give you a more concrete example on how Chinese companies react and adapt to China's VUCA environment. Following up on our last episode, where we discussed the VUCA environment and what it involves. And let's recall what VUCA actually means. It's a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment that startups need to thrive in China. So let's talk about Megvii. Megvii is also known as Face++ and was founded in 2011 in Beijing. Megvii is the oldest unicorn in the group of the four AI dragons. And so these are all native companies here in China and are all like AI giants. The other three companies are SenseTime, Yi2, and CloudWalk. Now let's look at Megvii's core competency, which is deep learning and computer vision. And as we all know, these are the two ingredients for the AI revolution, right? So what they started with face recognition software. So this is why they're also called Face++. And obviously face recognition involves a lot of AI and a lot of computer vision. They are moving into the Internet of Things space. They are taking, obviously, they're taking this face recognition one step further, meaning that they are now targeting with their like AI solution, targeting devices which are connected to the internet, sending and receiving signals to operate autonomously. So, for instance, if you imagine a cleaning robot that is operating in your living room to clean the room while you are not there at home, this is an example of a consumer related IoT device, right? So the three areas that Megvii tackles are consumer, the city space. So it could be anything from intelligent traffic lights to safety installations, obviously also cameras. And the third part that they're tackling is industrial, anything connected to the supply chain or logistics. So imagine a factory with a lot of logistics robots and picking and placing robots operating in the factory. This is the core competency of Megvii. And I've watched the promotion video, which we'll also link in the show notes so that you get an impression what this looks like. What's also important to mention is that Megvii provides customers with full stack solution, which means they do not only sell a software or an algorithm, but they always sell a package of hardware, software, and algorithms. And at the moment, they have 3,000 employees worldwide. So it's an internationally operating company, but their main market is still China. So Megvii is also the champion in various fields. First, Megvii operates the world's largest computer vision research institute. They are putting a lot of money into research, and they have a full team, international team working on this. Second, since 2017, Megvii has won a total of 42 world championships in various leading international AI competitions. Thirdly, Megvii is one of the few companies in the world with a, as I said, proprietary deep learning framework, which means they own the rights themselves and it's owned exclusively by Megvii. And now we're going to talk about what has happened to the company along that journey so that we can discuss later what we observed, how this company reacted to the VUCA environment in China. Handing this over to you, Kimo. Can you introduce, please, what has happened and how they developed?
Right. So thank you for the exciting introduction. So Megvii is one of China's four AI dragons, and they are one of two AI dragons that are actually public. So they're also a step ahead of half of the competition there. And it's very interesting in China because China makes it a national priority to be the world leader in AI. And Megvii positions its innovations to piggyback on this Chinese government agenda and policies in times of revelation. What is very interesting and important to understand is that AI is seen as a basic commodity, such as energy in China. AI is something that is necessary for continuing the growth in the eyes of the Chinese government. And this is why it's such as a center of attention, and everything that has to do with making AI a standard for operations, for machines, for companies, basically increases efficiency. Increases efficiency. The government really sees AI as a future. And obviously, you have two ecosystems. You have the US ecosystem, where you have your own tech companies, and then you have the China ecosystem. Most of the time, they operate quite separately, which is also interesting. And this is also the reason why the US is trying to block a lot of the China AI companies in the US, while China is not favorable to using US tech or AI tech in their local market. So you have two separate ecosystems basically racing to the top. And it's not only that it's government driven, how many people would understand AI and tech, but also the firms really are becoming more innovative in China, and also the startup space is actually moving this innovation forward, and the government is basically hopping on whatever works, whatever is leading. And in recent years, China has enacted a variety of regulations to support this ecosystem, the companies that are already innovative, aiming at basically strengthening AI research. And these regulations convey a clear message to many AI stakeholders, including businesses, investors, and even researchers, that AI is a sector in which the government is investing and in which they should also participate with their capital. Thanks to the support of the government, this industry remains strong and has made significant breakthroughs. Many of those AI dragons are not profitable yet. And so it's basically a bet for the future, a lot of in the front investing, and then the payoff becomes later. So this government support is crucial. What is this era of? Why are we in an era of face scanning now? So in July 2017, Alibaba launched its unnamed supermarket, Tao Coffee, which has helped to quickly ignite another way of new retail. And Megvii has been one of the players that has been participating in this initiative, AI plus retail technology, and has helped to upgrade the solution to combining an experience of shopping while continuously applying technology during the shopping experience. So it basically means that without AI, you couldn't really leverage this 5G retail that we talked about before, because you really need to understand, okay, who is doing what at what time, and really needs to understand, also learn to advance it to bigger computing numbers, to more real life situations.
And maybe I can describe how this actually looks, because I watched the video because I was actually very curious about this store myself. Maybe we can also link this in the show notes. And you can imagine it as a like massive supermarket, and it's like really fully automatic, which means you just walk in with your shopping cart, you just pick whatever you like, and then with facial recognition combined with payment systems, completely automatically do the payment and process the payment. So this will probably be the future. I think there are a lot of companies also in the US experimenting with this model, but Alibaba was considered the first installing this massive system involving, of course, facial recognition, automatic payment, robotic, intelligent in the background, and computer vision. These technologies combined with retail experience and retail knowledge in this, and it wasn't actually a very successful pilot, as I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, and behind this advanced face scanning technology is this Megvii Face Plus Plus technology,
Yeah, exactly.
which has been a lot in the news. It can be used for multiple purposes. For example, it can be used for shopping purposes, but it can also be used for surveillance purposes. And of course, it is a thing that the US government also likes to draw up on and say, okay, we don't want this AI technology in the US because it has been also used to basically scan areas in Chinese towns to actually recognize what are minorities and to classify people. So the Chinese government also playing around with this for their own use. And obviously, it's not only Megvii, it's also SenseTime and the others that are involved in that. They all get dragged into that because they collaborate with the government, and that's how the US tries to justify banning those because they don't want to have local competition with the Chinese companies. Because in some aspects, they're obviously in the front, the US, they're leading, but they are not leading by that much anymore.
Yeah, I might be mistaken, but actually, when reading about Megvii or also watching these videos, I remembered that when I was in Beijing from 2014 to 2017, I actually visited one like AI computer vision startup doing exactly the same thing, and I could bet this was Megvii. I visited this startup in Zhongguancun area in Beijing with the German embassy together, and they were telling, and I think I really bet this was Megvii. I need to find that out. But they were telling that the Chinese government was obviously their first customer using the technology. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is also something that draws in basically on the C-suite profile because you can actually see, okay, Megvii has been founded in a university environment, and the government has been able to see the progress of the company because it has been like a university incubator, one of their top classes, and being able to be so connected to the government from the very beginning really helped Megvii to streamline and some exponential growth. But back to the era of face scanning. So the era of face scanning basically means that Megvii and Ant Financial began to cooperate in the development of face payment products in 2015 already, and Jack Ma officially disclosed the technical results of the world for the first time in 2017 as Megvii is Alibaba backed. So you see that they really have something good going, and competition is really on their toes to what is happening. That's also why the government is cooperating with them so closely because are just good. They're just doing great work, and yeah, Megvii has remained largely untouched by the Chinese policy changes. Now, this is the thing that we talked about: early collaboration with the government, close ties. One of the specialized classes where the smartest minds of China come in that have been come together as class colleagues to find that company. And in 2017, China pledged that the country would become that leader. And of course, investing billions of dollars in research and attracting and retaining the brightest talent is important. So this goes kind of hand in hand with trying to not harm what is most important and trying to accept it from larger legislation.
Yeah, and you could also say it's maybe because they are tackling two key areas that China is facing at or focusing on. They are tackling robotics and they're tackling AI, and of one of these like research intensive fields. China is about to publish their own guidance or like ethic frameworks for algorithms and is one of the leading countries in this space also. When you mentioned the talent, I think what many people also don't know is that in China, China was one of the first countries where AI was introduced in schools and early school education. Yeah.
This early penetration through the school system is essential and also can be explained by a more structured, less segmented government operating engine, yeah, where we have a lot of bureaucracy before, a lot of discussion before that could ever happen in schools in Germany, for example. So you see that less bureaucracy really leads to the
Yeah.
potential of less problems with like data protection laws, leads to the potential of AI to develop faster and be able to have access to more useful information for testing and also for learning with the software. Maybe very quickly we can talk about the Megvii C-suite profile because it's something that's also very
Very
interesting.
important, yeah. Talking about talent.
Right, talking about talent, yeah. Megvii's creation owes credit to a selective education talent initiative called the Zhao Class at the Tsinghua University. And founders Jing Qi, Tang Wenbin, and Yang Mu have grown Megvii from its beginnings on campus into a unicorn, boasting a current valuation of around 4 billion US dollars. In
So
October,
they were all from Tsinghua University, right? They were
right.
all in this class in this Tao program.
Yeah, that's so interesting because they have
Yeah.
been colleagues at university, and then it's kind of similar to Facebook now called Meta, but the difference is that there hasn't been one leader in China, but it has been like a collective of high talent people to found that company, and not like in the
Mhm.
US structure where you have one genius in 1,000 hands. Like they same thing with the founder of Apple. And also the founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, and Steve Jobs, and that basically happened to Facebook as well. You have one genius, and then he has 50 employees, but everybody works towards his
Mhm.
ideals. In China, it's more collectivist, and you can also see this in the example of the case of Megvii, that you have this collaboration of four founders pulling
Mhm.
this thing together, and you have a strong leadership team where everybody adds to each other.
And also, just to jump in, sorry again. um, like they were not only at the same university and one of the best universities in China, so it's like Harvard in the US, but they were all in the elite program of Tsinghua University, which is amazing and like stands out because I think in many US startups you find people that have studied at Harvard, at MIT. So like sometimes it's a founders team of three that all have these checks, right? But students or graduates that met in the elite program of such a like top university is something that really stands out.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously that the Yao class is something, it's a government founded initiative. This also explains why they basically also focus on the Chinese market so much. I think the chairman, Xi Jin, basically is also the CEO, and starting in Jin's sophomore year at Tsinghua University, Jin decided to reach out to his colleague, classmate, to talk about starting their own business. And so then we have Tan Wenbin. He is executive director and chief technology officer, and Tang Wenbin is Megvii's CTO and lead Megvii to collect 22 titles in international artificial intelligence. And then the last of the pack, we have Yang Mu, and he is executive director and senior vice president at Megvii, and he is Megvii's third co-founder in the pack. And he won a gold medal in the 2010 International Olympiad in informatics.
I didn't even know that such an Olympiad existed.
Yeah, like I think it was like the hackathon. He has led Megvii's cloud computing efforts to for Face Plus Plus, while also heading the company's business concerning personal mobile devices. And significant involvements and investors are that Megvii received 200 million guided funds lead investment in Series D round in 2019 through Bank of China Group Investments, the state's bank's private equity, and provides facial recognition technology to the private sector in China and public entities like city police departments and also city development.
Yeah, I think it's impressive and so many things to learn about this company. Maybe move into the discussion now, right? I'm trying to link this back to our former episode 5, VUCA environment, as I said in the introduction. How this, so we learned like a lot about the history of the path of the company. And now I think there's already some ideas in our heads what this company did to meet this VUCA environment in China in a positive way and to thrive. I think what definitely, well, as we said, what definitely helped them was working closely with the government, receiving a lot of funds from the government. The founders always managed to retain control. They never lost the control of the company. There was no real disruptions on the way that forced them into changing their business model. So this is one important part. And in total, because you mentioned the fundraising just now,
That makes it definitely stronger, especially in times of disruption. That's definitely one thing that contributed to it. That they were able to control the company without too much stakeholder intervention, and then also have very promising ongoing projects, which helped them get away with a blue eye from the crackdown. I think
mm,
what's really impressive and also communicating this message is that they have been listing, despite the 2021 crackdown, on the Shanghai Stock Exchange. And this is usually a move that
mm,
requires a strong standing in the market for branding and stock pricing, which you wouldn't actually do during times of a crackdown. But you can see that this company is so confident basically in what they offer, and also has a
Mm.
strong backbone. And you can see that here, that despite
Yeah.
this volatility, they have been going and listing the company on the stock exchange, which is a fundamentally important thing to go public if you really want to scale. And I think they have done it
Mm.
in uncertain times, which shows how much stability they have to maneuver this, and how good their network is building up from the university times to now being mature company, taking calculated decisions, taking calculated risks,
Mm.
standing together as leadership.
Yeah, and maybe if we reflect once more about what would have happened without the Chinese government backing them or giving like helping, or like without being able on the to list on the star market in Shanghai, well, like looking at the ethic challenges that are involved with
Yeah,
like the tracking and face recognition of minorities, and also like related sanctions of or regulations from the US side, right? They would have never been able to list on the
mm,
US stock market because they were just not allowed to, which would basically mean if they hadn't had the support of the Chinese government, if they hadn't had the chance to list on the star market, they would have had significant problems raising funds and going and IPOing, because they wouldn't have had the access to the American market, right? So having this again, having this
yeah.
strong standing in China is crucial, but also having the support of the government is crucial, and this basically saved their neck. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see those two ecosystems. I see the Chinese ecosystem. I see the US ecosystem. I mean, it is true that many. If you look at, for example, the company
Mm,
domains of the four AI dragons, 3 out of 4 of them have the same domain .cn and .com, and you see that they try to put also a lot of emphasis on the international brand, especially
mm,
not only with US, but with a whole Belt and Road Initiative, with Europe, with Australia, with other Western countries. You see, is very very important. But you see that the ecosystem in China is still very segmented from the one in the US, and they're both
mm,
not really don't really want to work together because they know that one of them is going to come up on top. And China is not to underestimate, even though with the big tech in the US still leading,
mm,
China has a very strong coming, and not all of this is just like developed by government initiatives. It's in the companies that have been growing for over so many years
mm,
in the big tech in China. There's so much innovation in the companies. There's so much good people there. Over decades now, they have been building up their university qualities, and to come basically to also compete with top universities in the world. And you can see this connects to the cluster, that you have university talent coming into this industry, and from an early age, as you said, they are fostering the things that are important for the economic development of China. And culturally, China is identifies with this growth, right? And so it really aligns with the values of also younger people say, okay, want to contribute to this growth, and that is
mhm.
some industry really want to like to focus on.
Yeah. And maybe one other thought experiment. If you had put a Megvii into Europe, and even though they had maybe had received as much support from the European countries and lots of funding also, maybe let's assume this funding side would have been the same.
Right. I mean, the strong demand for AI applications in the industry as well, from businesses, in addition to what the government basically demands, gave Megvii and also other AI players in the Chinese ecosystem that unique ability to have a steep learning curve. And so I would say, if you would have taken Megvii out of this ecosystem and put it in the European ecosystem, the growth wouldn't be comparable, would not have been comparable.
So you basically say that the variety of use cases would still not be the same in Europe, which would mean that they wouldn't be able to grow that fast.
Right. It's about learning curve, especially with AI. It's a lot of like trial and error. And if you have a practical application and direct collaborations, you can also go for innovation co-creation directly with the industry.
You have a lot of your robotic use cases as well in Europe, right? Maybe the companies are not as like the established companies that you would work with as Megvii in Europe would be as risk affine like this, as like happy to run like crazy experiments, let's say, as in China, but you still have the variety, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the European investors are concerned with startup going too broad because there are only so many applications in the European market. From my understanding, you have various more diverse downstream partners within China than in Europe, especially with less data protection problems. And then also you have the government as a really strong partner. I mean, it's like, okay, we really need your technology. It's a lot of diverse downstream partners, but also horizontal clusters that make competition more fierce and companies more innovative. And you have this combination of clustering and variety that gives us a strong scientific base, that gives this whole ecosystem an interesting angle, interesting touch, and potential for growth that would, in my opinion, not be comparable in Europe. In Europe, definitely the company would have its niche, but here it's like a real superpower, like one of these four AI dragons. I mean, obviously, it's called an AI dragon because dragons are seen as something divine, right? Divine in Chinese culture. They're seen as something very positive, very mighty. They have been connected to the Chinese emperor as their sign. So it's a very exclusive and very powerful sign, the sign of the dragon. So you have to understand that they're calling this also the Chinese dragons.
Yeah, and you also have one more thing. Well, it's good to have Alibaba as your investor, right? Like it would be the same as if you would choose Amazon in China, in the US. And if you have Amazon or like Alibaba, you have the retail experience, you can have these like the consumer angle, you have the consumer angle tackled, but at the same time they have these massive warehouses, these massive logistics processes in the background, and they're working on it themselves. So they have, moreover, they are the perfect investor. They have all the multiple scenarios that you are tackling from the very beginning. As a startup, you can be both learning in this environment from an expert, but you also have this first customer guiding you through and like opening up their box of use cases to you completely. And if you have this, like this is the jackpot, right? And this again, you wouldn't find in Europe.
Very nurturing environment for the startup, and a lot of good things coming together at the right time. So, anything to add? Some conclusions from your side, Betty?
No, I think that was a good conclusion. I think, yeah, interesting case. I think we should do more use cases in the future. It will help to sum up this like detailed discussion that we have usually and make it more, yeah, just put some life to it, right? And it's also a lot of fun to look into these use cases, and we can link some videos for our audience, which also makes it easier to understand these parts of China. Because I feel like if you're sitting in Europe or the US or wherever, it's still really tough to understand what we are really talking about, because you usually do not like, I wouldn't have taken the hassle to just look up YouTube videos to watch about these Chinese companies. I think it helps if you have them some introduction, and then you get a link and you have a look, and then that gives you, and also makes it easier to just understand the whole content that we present.
It's basically about demystifying what is happening in China, because some of those even if they're big companies, are not very known in Europe, and I think we are going to from time to time mix in one of those use cases because they're interesting. They're a good learning opportunity for our listeners to understand, okay, how this company has been going from the founding stage to its current success, and what factors are helping in the ecosystems, what factors might have been hampering that progress. And case studies are a very well-known learning method. So we help you and we guide you through these case studies to make this to streamline the learning for you. So I think we're gonna have some more of those case studies from time to time on the show to feed you this information that is not broadly available, but takes a lot of research to get.
Great. Then thanks very much again for a great discussion, Kimo, to Sydney.
Thank you, Betty.
And thanks to our audience also. Thanks for tuning in again, and we're looking forward to the next time. Bye.
Bye.